Today's episode of On the Ground Parenting is brought to you by Red Juice Studio, bringing context and empathy to audio and creating pathways between generations.
Welcome to Muskoka Family Focus, brand new parenting podcast called On the Ground Parenting. And we are here to explore topics to dive into what it's like to be a parent. We're all parents ourselves. My name is Sandy Inkster, and I'd like to offer my parenting education team to introduce themselves.
Hi there, I'm Sam Ennest-Wallis.
And hi, folks, I'm Kelly Armstrong.
So here we are today, and for many occasions in the future, we want to talk about what it's like to be a parent and what are the exciting moments, what are the challenging moments, what makes you go, what makes you go, yahoo! And at this time of year, we are now coming into summer. The weather's getting warm. We're not shoveling. We're not worried about the school buses being canceled because do you know what? It's summer holidays. We've already come into the end of the school year, and now you're faced with this big question. What are we going to do during the summertime? So we thought it would be wonderful to launch our first podcast with, what are you up to? What are you going to get up to this summer? What's on your radar? What things do you want to explore? So, Kelly, what have you done with your family in the past?
Well, we have a tradition in our family of taking my nieces and my nephews camping. It's their Christmas present. So we take 5 kids. We started when the second youngest one was in diapers, and it took a little while for the youngest one to join us, but we spend 5 days, no devices, camping in tents, catching frogs, swimming, playing on the beach. It's something we all look forward to every summer.
So, okay, you're camping, you're in tents, you're catching frogs. I want to hear about the stuff that didn't work out well. Did you plan with the kids? Like, did you talk it all out in advance, or what went down?
So it's our Christmas gift. So they start by getting an invitation. But after that, we've tried different things at different times. We've tried involving them in making snacks. So one year we had them all come over a few days before our camping trip, and they all made their own gorp, good old raisins and peanuts. But because it wasn't good old raisins and peanuts, we had so many other things, and they had a blast. They made giant amounts of their snack. Turns out what we didn't say to them was, do you like the food you just put in your snack? They were having so much fun mixing it. So then they all had snacks they wouldn't eat.
Oh, what a riot. And that's always a big thing with kids too, isn't it? Yeah. What they will and what they won't eat. Now, Sam, how about you? So I know that you've talked an awful lot in the different parenting workshops about neurodiversity, and for your children, what would that be like for you? Do you include them in the planning, or is it better to not give them too much time to project issues that may happen, or is it a surprise? How do you go about this?
Oh gosh, there's no surprising that is not it doesn't fly at all. So there's always time to prepare, not so much that everybody's perseverating on what's going to go terribly wrong, but we definitely plan ahead and talk about what kinds of foods people are going to want to eat. Lots of conversations about the fact that we need to be sure we're going to eat what we're taking because it's what we have. That's what we're going to have for the time that we're there. And if you don't like it, you're going to be one hungry human being by the time we get back home again. So definitely lots of planning. But our experience has always been very different than Kelly's because of the neurodiversity and routines required. So my youngest loves the idea of going camping, and then we get there and we're there for at least 3 days, and he's ready to go home. We get there, I barely get everything set up, and he's like, okay, when are we leaving? Well, it's Friday night, we're not leaving till Monday morning, so buckle in. So devices do come with us, which is totally different than Kelly's experience, but we would download certain comfort shows on the iPad on Netflix so that he would have something to do when he needed to have his time to reset and realign himself again.
I think that that's a big important part of any parent, or for me now as a grandparent, I'm going on adventures with my grandkids. So, and I will just put this out there: my kids are probably, if they listen to this, they're going to say, "Yeah, Mom, we've realized that what was happening with us or was not happening with us, it was a whole new ball game with the grandkids, with their kids." But I'm thinking about that range of preparedness. So, Kelly, I get the sense that you're wanting to give your nieces and nephews sort of that away from technology, so getting them back into nature. But I think that that's really what we're wanting to encourage all families to understand. What's a realistic approach for you? And I want to bring in this phrase that we've talked about together as a facilitating team about following the kids' lead. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that's a really important part. And I think for me, the following the kids' lead is right there with what's their learning edge. And so when Sam's talking, what I'm hearing is that if they had no devices, that might be a giant meltdown, end of camping trip, whether they wanted it or not, because that's the place where one of our kids needs to find comfort, or maybe both of our kids, until they can find their feet again. And then likewise, although we say no devices and we mostly have no devices, I do have a couple of audiobooks in my back pocket, because sometimes we are so tired that my mom used to say, "You're so tired, you don't even know which end is up." And one of our learning edges for ourselves with this adventure is, because of everybody's schedules, we often go early July. Well, early July is stunningly close to the solstice, and we have a bright yellow tent. So we realize these small people who are often in bed by 8:30 at night are now like, the sun doesn't even go down until 9:30, and then they're up with the sun. So at 4 a.m, one of my nieces wakes me up, eyeball to eyeball, leaning over my sleeping bag. "Good morning, Aunt Kelly. Can we go swimming right now?" And one of my
Yeah.
goals is to just say yes. So if I can, even if it makes me uncomfortable, even if I don't want to, I try to say yes. If it's a safety issue, we say no, but that's a whole different conversation.
I think that'll be a great conversation for us to have another time. Like, I know that there's been a lot of attention brought into the Just Say Yes day, movie, or the Yes Day, things like that. I think we all have had experiences where maybe we followed the lead of a child. We've had a yes day, and we've got some hilarious stories that we can share with everybody. So, thinking about, again, Kelly, how you were preparing your nieces and nephews. So, and you started with the making the gorp, and then the next realization was, oh, okay, they've loved mixing all this stuff together, but they're not going to eat any of it. So what was the next step? So obviously this was like you were preparing them for a bigger adventure. And I will say that that was a word that I started to use with my grandsons, who are now 18 and 16. And so it was always like, are you ready for an adventure? And just that would sort of, I could just see them vibrating with excitement. They had no idea what it was, but it was just how it was delivered. So what was the next thing for you? What did you do next, Kelly, to help them get prepared for this exciting adventure?
Well, one of our big goals, so we do this both as a gift of joy, but we also have a bigger goal around being responsible for yourself and learning through your mistakes. And we love lists in our house. So my husband prints off a list. When the kids were younger, they had some pictures. These are the things you need to bring to sleep with. These are the things, the clothes and the things that you might want to wear. And then these are a few handful of activities that you might want to bring with you. Usually it's, if you're in the middle of a personal book or those kinds of things. And one of my goals is always for the kids to put together their own stuff. And that always involves parents sort of supporting them in this. So whether or not they bring it all on the bed and then they pack it into their bag, or whether or not, ultimately, I'd love to see every kid pack their own bag, because then they know where things are. And when parents have packed everything, I have been told by my nieces and nephews sometimes adamantly that they don't have that. They did have it. They didn't pack their bag, so they had no idea that they had it. And every kid I know sometimes doesn't look very well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're talking about tossing some stuff into a bag, and an important part for the three of us and the rest of the parenting education team is that we really want to minimize cost. So I know that you can find bags, backpacks, especially important to have like a zipper, something to contain it, because I will talk about the experience where there wasn't a zipper and somebody picked up a bag and all of their stuff went all over the vehicle. So having a zipper is really essential. Where are some places, Sam, that you might recommend if parents wanted to get something to contain it? It might be that maybe you've got a toddler who hasn't been going to any space where they've needed a backpack or a special bag yet. So where could you find one without spending a lot of money?
I think it's a great idea to first ask, and especially in this social media age, it's really easy to just put a post out saying, "Hey, does anyone have a backpack we can borrow? We're going camping this weekend." And if that doesn't work out, Marketplace on Facebook is a great place, or thrift stores are another great place to find things like that because people are always getting rid of bags. We all seem to have too many bags, and people are getting rid of them. So garage sales, again, would be another spot to have a look for them. I think there's lots of ways of minimizing some of the costs for sure. And it doesn't have to be new, right? Like, even if it needs to be waterproofed, you can buy waterproofing stuff. But if you're tent camping, your stuff is going to be in your bag, in your tent anyways. So yeah, I think there's great places to look to save a few dollars for sure.
Yeah, and I think even that whole practice of modeling to our kids that we don't always have to go and spend a lot of money, that it's okay to reuse. My kids, for example, when they were little, when they would get bags of clothes from their cousins, it was like Christmas, Easter, the gifting was amazing. And I will confess to being a bag lady for a long time. Everybody would see me toting in all of my books and all of my puppets and everything. I'm a bag lady. And yeah, I still, when my sister said to me, "I'm getting rid of these bags," and I'm thinking, "Oh, bags." But, realistically, everybody, if you need a bag, you might want to reach out to me because I've probably got 40 spares. So, Kelly, what did you want to add?
I think two things came up to what both of you are saying. One is after we've thrift stored a bag, I don't know if that's exactly how you say it, but just a few little embellishments make kids own that bag and love it. So it might be a badge they got from somewhere that you could sew on or glue on. It might be just replacing some of the rope with new cording, and you can get that often at Canadian Tire. And a little bit of spiffing up not only models this reusing thing, which is good for the planet and keeping our budgets low, but kids are often thrilled because then it's super unique. And just on the waterproofing piece, a really easy trick for waterproofing is a garbage bag or a grocery bag that you just line your backpack with. And that's one of my favorites because waterproofing sprays wear off. That's always cheap. It's easy. I try to convince most of the kids I work with, because I also work with Girl Guides and Scouts lots of times, to just always have one plastic bag tucked in their backpack somewhere, because you never know when you're about to encounter a lot of wetness.
Anybody who's ever had a loaf of bread, there you've got a plastic bag. If
Mhm.
you ever buy your milk in the bags of milk, there you've got a plastic bag. So it's available, right?
I think that's a great tip.
So we've been talking, I think, more about bigger adventures. I want to talk about if you're not quite ready to go on that big adventure, even though like making your snacks could be just for a day trip or an hour, or, a couple of hours. But so my youngest grandson, when we would go out into the backyard, and I would get a bag out and I would start putting in things that I would want to have for him, but then he would start putting in things too. So it's a whole new practice now that when we just go out to the backyard to the sandbox, he goes and gets a bag and we start putting things in. I'm always putting in the little towel because if it's rained, I know he won't sit on his little digger because it's all wet. So I've got the towel for him, and he's always all about food anywhere he goes. So there's an apple, there's maybe some cheese or something that he wants to take. Plus, he's got a favorite stuffy or a favorite toy that he wants to bring out just as an observer. So things for us to just be noticing and to include them. And then it becomes already their way of knowing how to take care of themselves, how to be ready. I know that Kelly comes from a big scouting family, scouting and guiding. And so we will hear lots of these phrases arise in on the ground parenting. It's what happens when we're in the dirt in our parenting role. So let's talk about day trips then. Where do you like to go on day trips? Where have you had success? Where did you think that you would have success? And where did it all go to?
I have one day trip that is always front of mind for me because I thought it was going to be amazing. It was not amazing. And then all of a sudden, it was amazing. So I took my youngest to a pumpkin patch, which is, later in the fall. But I thought he would have such a great time and we'd really enjoy ourselves. And he was so grumpy, so grumpy. And then he rolled down a hill on purpose. He just rolled down a hill because he saw another kid doing it. And it was like this rolling down the hill was a complete reset for him. And then he was going in the corn maze and he was climbing on this and we were riding a train and we went and picked a pumpkin. It just totally changed the whole outlook on the day, which I think is something to keep in mind, that those moments or those experiences, even if they aren't amazing at first, they could turn into something wonderful or even just memorable. That would be the other thing, because I have this amazing picture of him. It was one of those cutout things that you see at cornfields, and it was a police officer or a sheriff, and he had the grumpiest look on his face. And I love that picture so much. The fact that he allowed me to take his picture when he was in that mood, but also just like the grumpiest look. It was hilarious.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I want to put something as a topic for us to come back to, and because I think this is really important for families to be aware of in the moment with their kids as well, too. When we have those moods and we're not really certain what's going on, but the sensory seekers and the sensory avoiders, and how that sensory experience of your son rolling down, that was significant for a shift in him being able to end up having an enjoyable time on the other activities that were there. Kelly, how about you? What day trips would you recommend, or experiences that you've had that were successful or were challenging?
Yeah, I think it depends on, what you're in the mood for, what kind of time you have, those sorts of things. When we have a full day with no other commitments that day, my absolute favorite is Awenda Provincial Park. It's like Wasaga Beach in the sense that it's this big, long beach, but it's way more rocky, so you can swim and stand on rocks and play on rocks, and there's some beach. And we've had our kids like pack for the day and often we actually spend Canada Day there, and had a really, really great time. But that's sort of the full day adventure, and it's my favorite. But the little tiny adventures, Hardy Lake, actually any little trail in Muskoka is great. What I find makes our adventures is trying to think a little bit about, what are we trying to do here? Sometimes as my kids are older now, they're adults, sometimes we're just trying to make kilometers. We want to get our energy out and just go for a walk. But often with the little people, they just want to look at things. Like, you've never looked at an acorn. Like a 3-year-old has looked at an acorn and found it and turned it upside down. And what I find funny is sometimes the other adults I'm with are like, hurry up, let's go. To what end? So just trying to think about if I can be outside with small people. There's this great book called The Book of Delights. And the author suggests that you find something that's delightful. You put your finger in the air and say, delightful, whenever you find it. So I challenged a group of kids in Scout Valley in just that little hiking trail not far from Costco in Aurelia. And so I had 12 girls running around being like, delightful, delightful. We laughed. Simple trip. Such a great time.
That's so much fun. And I want to tell you that I'm going to bring in a little bit of neuroscience here from my mindfulness training. And so we all have something that's called the negativity bias, which is really important. It's part of our survival brain that helps us perceive threat. So we all have this proclivity to have negativity. It's always there. In order to downplay that, to override it, we need to this is what Dr. Rick Hansen talks about. He talks about linger in the positive or savor the good. And so that delightful, that's exactly lingering in the positive. So that's helping us to see more what's positive in life. How we've evolved as human beings, that perception of threat was important for survival, but we don't have that same type of threat in the society in which we live in. So to override that, delightful. So just as a quick summary here now, I think maybe we can actually talk about what rose up for you, Kelly.
I love the tension between how are we going to partner with our kiddos to have an experience. I love the words partner with our kiddos.
Sam, what took root for you?
I think for me, what really took root was how important it is to include children in the planning to be able to do activities in a way that is the most comfortable for them, but still allows them to have the experience.
Thank you so much. And what sprouted up for me is, I guess, maybe just the idea that we've got that opportunity. We've got the outdoors. Take advantage of it. Get out there. Find the support. Find the resources. Don't spend a lot of money. And just do it. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Ground Parenting. I'm Sandy.
I'm Sam.
I'm Kelly.
And we're pleased that you joined us. And if you have anything that you want to say, please click on the link below. Are you in the middle of a trip where everything is going well? We want to hear about it. Not going so swell? We want to hear about that too. See you later.
This episode was brought to you by Red Juice Studio. If you'd like to learn more, go to redjuicestudio.com. If you have any questions for our hosts or would like to recommend show ideas, email parented@muskokafamilyfocus.ca. This was brought to you by Muskoka Family Focus. If you'd like to learn more, donate, or become an episode sponsor, go to muskokafamilyfocus.ca. This was produced and published by Red Juice Studio. redjuicestudio.com.